invited. And I think the silence you were hearing, or lack of hearing any sound, Andrea, is that, oh, she's not listening. Well, it's your courage. We are awed by your courage, which is your vulnerability. I think that's why everybody was processing everything, I just want to say. So a little bit about me. I also grew up in Charlottesville, and PVCC, transferred UVA, double major, studies of women and gender and religious studies. Buddhism and Hinduism as my focuses. So spiritual activism is what I say I went to school for, which is pretty accurate. And a lot of people are like, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, well, I became a better person. So, but one of the things that turned into a lot of the things I learned and was able to put in context with my creativity as well is the Fire Tigers. And the Fire Tigers, it's really hard to explain, but we talk about trauma and healing openly. There's 10 original poems. I have a twin sister, identical twin sister. We have very different styles. I'm a little more like this, she's a little like that. And there's a dance, there's a song, there's a program. We talk about Waking the Tiger, Healing Trauma. We give gifts to everybody who comes. It's in some ways a healing ceremony, but it's not religious at all, and in some ways it's more than that. It's a catalyst. We talk about mental health, and we also encourage everyone to get therapy, because if you're alive, then you need therapy. There's really no way around it. You can be in denial, but if you're gonna live in the world, you can be unhealthy, but if you want healthy, you're gonna just want to stick to therapy. So that's a little bit about me. I have a little note here. Oh, so one thing you were talking about, the last one was a child. You're a hope, the nest, the egg. So I recently got married, and I have a 10-year-old niece, and she wanted to make posters one day, and so I did this one, and it says, which is true, and that's why art and poetry is my activism. It says, the heart of justice is storytelling, which is Bell Hooks is who said that. If you don't know her, you should know her name and look her up. She's an amazing writer, contributes so much. And so with that, my activism is the Fire Tigers, and storytelling is so important to justice. So the first poem I'm going to perform, I actually have memorized it. It is in the show. And it's after the second half, there's an intermission, because we're tigers, so we pounce, and you guys have to process everything, you need a little break, and we go back in. And this is a part of a 10-part poem. I have a lot to say about this. It's called That's So Gay. But this is part 3. So this is a story about my experience, and this is kind of me claiming my voice back in that moment. And I hope I remember it. I haven't performed it in a little while. So. Why did you do that? He said. I watch a boy, not older than college age, be reprimanded by his so-called friend for, of all things, wearing a colorful plastic ring. I saw him as he looked over his shoulder, trying not to be noticed. With delight in his eyes, he tries on a few rings meant for women. But one got stuck on his middle finger, and as he turned around, not wanting to ask for help, he knew he was screwed in spite of himself. Sheepishly, he looks around for a closet to hide in, but alas, he can only pretend that this really isn't happening. I wanted to ask his friend, why is it such a big deal for him to wear a pretty little ring on his finger? Where does it say guys who wear pretty rings go to hell? How does what we wear define who we are? Oldest trick in the book, according to gender. Blue and pink, pants and skirts. Separate the sexes at birth, as if makeup and high heels are off limits to those with a penis. How can masculinity be so strong when it crumbles so quickly? And is directly related to what you wear on your finger, or how you decide to dress, or which side of the fence you can safely call your true self. It doesn't make sense to me that boys are told you have to be allergic to pink and certain rings to save your self-esteem. And wearing makeup is a sin, but killing others is accepted. Violence is one of the only ways men are told that they can prove the unattainable ideal that is masculinity. Oh, I have you guys, and I totally lost it. Because strength and courage are not defined by how much love and compassion you have in your heart, but rather how well you can beat your opponent and stay on top. Never be seen as weak by the company you keep, no matter what the cost. Never cry, and always hit back with full force. And we wonder why so many men are emotionally unavailable in this day and age. What do you expect when we deprive them of so much of what it means to be human, and prevent them from honoring the sadness and pain that life is bound to give them? If being a man is defined by what a woman is not, can I just say, true courage and strength shines when you have the audacity to be yourself no matter what. This transcends gender norms and lines, and if wearing something that is meant for women makes you less of a man, then we need to remember, by the way, we're all human. Thank you. So that's my fiery side. I have a lot to say on this. The next one I'm going to share is very dear to my heart. This is about the Occupy Charlottesville movement in 2011. I was a very big part of it. You might have heard of this park. It's called Lee Park in Charlottesville, Virginia. And anyway, when I was there in 2011, we occupied. We went to city council. We talked about a statue. We said if you don't want anything political in this park, then you should totally remove that thing. Anyway, I'm sure you guys know another chapter in that story. But this is spiritual activism. You know, everyone has the way that they, their calling. Some people are very law-oriented. They think of laws as really important. I do too. But for me, I think of like the here and now, like, hey, how's everybody feeling right now? How can we support each other in this moment? Those matter. Trust me, I know laws matter, but, So for me, this is pretty much spiritual activism in a nutshell, and it's called New Grass Grows. I remember when the park was just a park, with no tents, no signs, no campfire, and no spark. Just a place dogs go to play and poop, as their owners try to hide what they decide not to pick up. I remember eating lunch there, sitting on a bench in my own solitaire, friendless, helpless, but hopeful for change, wondering when my life will cease to abide, wanting to decide for something more. I remember that cold, rainy day it was said to come support the 99% under a big white tent. It's called the Pavilion if you've ever been there. There were cameras and umbrellas, a whisper of hope in the air, a defiant, we are still here, a first meeting of radical strangers. Well, it took 3 hours of conversation with much patience and most people's undivided attention. It was decided to occupy the nearby park. So bring your tents, bring your signs and blankets, but more importantly, bring your beating hearts. I remember when the park was filled to the brim with tense, bright eyes and occasional hymn. The fire pit became the hearth of our self-made dens, a place I called home, where strangers became lovers and where I found my long-lost friends. People were well-fed with food and new friendships, energized by lively discussions and beautiful mic checks, meeting every night under the changing moon. People knew my name as I claimed my voice back, not a moment too soon. After speaking our words of truth, hope, and love, we were abruptly evicted from our revolutionary abode. After 11 o'clock, the police came to take my friends away. Sorry, get a little bit emotional about this. A part of me died that fateful night, alongside any hope for my government. Since I was not allowed in the park, I cried tears on the sidewalk. I felt a familiar emptiness for days. Now when the sun is up, I still eat lunch in this graveyard park, with no tents, no signs, no voices, no campfire, and no spark. As I look around these pieces of earth, I remember all of those who stood with me. Like stepping on unmarked graves, it is like a ghost town to me today. As I eat, no one talks to me now, because no one knows my name next to that stupid statue. Dogs still poop and play. Their owners still don't clean up the messes they've made. Not much has changed to the untrained eye. But as I look down, I see proof of what once was. What I see is new grass, growth, and rebirth. I see new grass growing where tents once stood. I see new green where the fire pit once burned. I see new life in those places once barren, with so much movement and many footprints. This park was filled with spark and full of life each night. Truth be told, the proof is in the soil. The earth remembers our presence, even if no one else does. I see growth in the hearts of those who courageously stood up for equality, financial stability, and the right to be heard. I see progress in the connections we've made, complete strangers turned into good friends, and the people we know now are the names we call out when we are in need of help instead of reverting to old destructive habits. I see rebirth from the ashes of despair. People once isolated and alone prove their worth to themselves. Once dim candles find the fire within. The tears I cried on the sidewalk was a necessary part of universal transformation. True change is only birthed when there is a release, a letting go, with a renewed sense of self. Such beauty comes from birth, death, and resurrection. How fitting to see the new grass grow as a sign of strength from within, proving that the cycle of life never dies, only changes form. And if you wait long enough, it will always come back and better than before. As memories play their part and build on each other, my life is forever changed by the experiences felt in this tent city. As we protested for change on a broad scale, we found a kinship of misfits and started with the only thing you can truly change, and that is very simply yourself. Thank you.